which we all know who we want as president. But at least you'll be able to have the information to share with your friends, family, and folks that do not. Well, I should say, are still on the line of not knowing who to vote for. So that's kind of crazy as far as when you think about how crazy that is. But it is. There's people that are still undecided, and I don't know who these folks are and why they're the way they are, but that's the way they are. So, welcome to Touch Base Daily. We are going to have a great panel discussion. Today, we'll be focusing on the first interview by Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and that was yesterday with on CNN. So, we'll be sharing and talking and getting our perspectives about the conversation. And it should be interesting because we have a lot of strong personalities on our panel, so we'll be able to share some real good thoughts. And yeah, and I always like to say, when you tune into our community, we are the regular folks. We are the regular folks. We are not connected. I'm not a political scientist, even though I love politics, and no one here is in the political field. But we watch politics. We listen to politics. We understand our communities. We understand the people we are around, and therefore we have a voice. Because just like we have a voice, you have a voice, and we welcome that too. So that is where we are, and let's say good morning to everyone because there are some folks already in the queue saying hello. First of all, Aya gets the gold. Aya says, "Thank God it's Friday." Grand Rising, Ron and everyone. RLP. Brian says, "Man, let's go, y'all." He's in the back room right now. And he gets the silver. And Jazzy gets the bronze. Good morning, everyone, she says. And we have Amparo, the great Amparo, Grand Rising RLP family. And we have Kelly A. She's saying, "Good morning, everyone." And Hannah's in the building. Good morning, Ron. Omar's in the building. Hey, family. And Elise is in the building. And she says, "Good morning." Elise, I did send you a link. Oh, there she is. I see her popping in the studio as well. And she says, "Good morning, everyone." And who else is in here? Anna is in the building. Felice Fifi is in the building. And Omar says, Aya is just going to own. Aya is just going to own the top spot, not even going to try anymore. Yeah, you gotta get up early to meet. Aya is here early. She pops into the studio. I'm looking at the screen. I can see who's saying hello early, and she is there. And we have the great, wonderful Gwendolyn, who's going to be on our panel today as well. She is in here, and she says, "Good morning to everyone." I see the great Jamel Shabazz is in the building. And so here we are. We're all here. The gang is here, and all the rest who are not here will join us. I'm just going to put everybody on. I have no announcements. Let's go. Let's go. Let's bring them on. Let's bring them all on. There's Gwendolyn. Whoa! It's Gwendolyn. It's Brian. Whoa! And it's the great Elise. And I'm going to get that banner off the screen. And let me see here. Oh, let me put that here and there. And there we go. When you are your own producer, you got all these buttons to play with. So here we are. Here we are, guys. And who saw? I know y'all all saw it because you're all the geeks. But I'm curious to know in the audience how many of you saw the interview last night. That is what I would like to know. How many of you saw the CNN first interview of ticket holders of the election, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? So I see Adrian's in the building. He's just popped in as well. He says, "Woohoo!" And guys, we're gonna have a lot more people coming on, so we'll have people rotate in. So we're gonna do that. This is the great part about this format is that when I put on this screen here, I got it all set up that this little QR code, this QR code is your entry to our panel discussion. If you want to come on live, just scan the QR code on your television or your tablet or wherever how you want to do it. And then it will take you to the link. The first link in the link tree is going to be there. And you can click on that and you can be in the studio and we'll just bring you on one by one if you want to have something to say. So there you go. We've made this very, what do you call it, streamlined. So that way you don't have to type it, look it up and all that stuff. All you got to do is click on the QR code and it will be there for you. So, but until then, I want to get rid of it so we can talk, but it will be there for when we open it up. And I see in here, who else is in the building? Great day. Adrian says, great day panel. And I see who else is here? Who else? Okay, Ron, she said, Ron, here we go. She says, Ron, you're getting fancy. I'd love to see it. So Jazzy, this time you will be able to get on. So yes. Exactly. Last week you wanted to come on, we got, we just couldn't get the code to you properly. So now, if anyone in this community wants to get on the code, get in. What I might end up doing in the future is putting that code probably down in the lower right hand corner. So when we have conversations like this, I won't block my head and whoever's on the top panel. Okay, guys, let's start with, let me just give you a little presentation of the opening of the wonderful interview. And here we go. And
down with me and bringing the bus. Bus tour is well underway here in Georgia. You have less time to make your case to voters than any candidate in modern American history. The voters are really eager to hear what your plans are. If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward. In a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism. I think sadly, in the last decade, we have had in the former president someone who has really been pushing an agenda and an environment that is about diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans, really dividing our nation. And I think people are ready to turn the page on that.
So what would you do day one?
Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy. I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard, which include what we're going to do to bring down the cost of everyday goods, what we're going to do to invest in America's small businesses, what we're going to do to invest in families, for example, extending child tax credit to $6,000 for families for the first year of their child's life, to help them buy a car seat, to help them buy baby clothes, a crib. There's the work that we're going to do that is about investing in the American family around affordable housing, a big issue in our country right now. So there are a number of things on day one.
What about you?
Well, I'm excited about this agenda too. As I said, the idea of inspiring America to what can be, and I think many of these things that the Vice President's proposing are things that we share in values. And the child tax credit is one we know that reduces childhood poverty by a third. We did it in Minnesota to have a federal partner in this. Unbelievable, I think, in the impact that we can make.
You talked about, you call it the opportunity economy. You are well aware that right now many Americans are struggling. There's a crisis of affordability. One of your campaign themes is we're not going back. But I wonder what you say to voters who do want to go back when it comes to the economy specifically, because their groceries were less expensive, housing was more affordable when Donald Trump was president.
And I'm going to leave it right there so we can continue the conversation. So, Guys, what did you think about this opening of the conversation of this amazing interview? Go ahead, Brian.
That's the fourth time I've watched that. Last night I watched it live. Then I rewatched it after last night. I got up this morning and watched the entire thing again because I went into it heated, kind of. Since I'll give you the foundation on which I'm saying this, and then I'll get into this interview. After seeing President Joe Biden in person here in Detroit, standing 25, I give you 25 feet tops away from him before he stepped down. And he was just sharp. This is after the debate. And I felt like, damn, I bought into this narrative. They got me. The media, all media, that he was old, feeble, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And since then, I've consistently been saying my opinion. This is my opinion. I separate my opinion from facts. But my opinion, the media has been complicit in a lot of these narratives. And you could go deeper into why and how. So how that comes into play with this so-called interview, one, I was already looking side-eyed at Dana Bash, because she was one of the moderators of the debate. Where were you with fact-checking Convict Orange? And the wording, if you really, here's where I'm like, okay, if you really pay attention to the wording, the word selected, in my opinion, the narrative in the questions, the leading nature of these questions, that annoyed me. Separate of that, she knocked it out of the park. In my opinion, she held her ground. She did in politics do no harm. She may have moved. I feel like she moved the needle a little bit, but to quote Tim Walz, not literally quote him, but him being a former football coach, she didn't try to go for a touchdown. She just went like, let's move the flags a little, a couple of yards at a time. Eventually we'll get the first down. The way she answered, clear, concise, loved it. But some of the questions that Dana, I'm doing that.
Are you doing a Camila Kamala?
Yeah. The way in which some of these questions, which I felt like this ain't got jack crap to do. It felt like tabloid journalism, and it didn't feel to me like authentic journalism, like real journalism. Like, I'll pause right there. But
okay, that sounds good. Okay, and Gwendolyn, I see your head nodding, and I see you smiling. So I know, as Adrian would say, Auntie Gwendolyn, we know you have something to say.
Well, I'm not going to be like Brian and be so gracious with my words. Those were bitch ass questions. Okay? We are going to call it what it is. Sorry, not sorry. I told you that this morning. I was like, CNN, like my husband watches CNN. It is not my place. I have little respect for most of what they do. And when they come out the gate with stuff like this, it just goes back to, as I told you, Ron, nothing she could say is going to change people who don't like her. For whatever reason, they don't like her, woman, black, whatever it is, right? But more importantly, they're not allowed to talk about the other guy. Like, they just are not allowed. So they have to go into this with, I'm going to find those gotcha moments. Like the whole idea of going back to when the economy was great under the other president. Well, he inherited a great economy. They always do. They always inherit a great situation, and people get amnesia, and then someone else comes in and has to clean up the mess that they made, which she, of course, made that point of, we came in when the world was on fire, right? And this whole thing about pricing, we know that was price gouging. I was looking at eggs yesterday at $3.50 at Kroger, and I thought, I'm not buying my eggs here for like the second time. I'm not doing it, right? But we know why those prices were increased. We know that this housing fiasco, like my neighbors sold their home way over the price. And I was like, we have a nice house. It ain't worth that money. It's not. So do I believe it was a great interview for her? Yes. Do I second Brian's point that CNN is about that BS? Yes, I do. I will let Miss Elise speak because she's more gracious than me.
Elise, do share.
Well, my word choices might be a little different, I guess. Look, I have to tell you all the funny part. So as I looked at the interviewer, I couldn't get Botox out of my mind. But anyway,
Oh no. Elise.
I couldn't help it. I figured I'd give you all something to laugh about. That top lip was frozen, but anyway.
So what do
On
you
to the serious part.
what did you get out of it yesterday? No, I mean, I get. What was your feeling of the interview? First of all, I agree with Brian. What he's saying about the, I mean, she was the one that was doing the debate questions and did not do the fact checking and all that stuff. And but anyway, you go ahead and I'm going to share mine after.
I think I've said all along that media has been complicit in everything. Absolutely the questioning and how she formed a later question, like that second question, what are you talking about? What are you gonna do day one? I would have just, Kamala's much better than me. I would have told her I'm not gonna be a dictator. But anyway, that's just my response. But I think Kamala, what I liked about how she responded is that they found out they could not push her to answer and conform or switch up.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's where you have to be. You have to be, as my therapist would say, you have to be that broken record. So when they ask the question, you just repeat your answer, which is she held her ground in doing that. And then the questions that, there were questions that, why are you asking those questions? Why is that relevant? Why is any of that relevant? And is that what you want to do at an interview? This is an interview where you're talking about, where you should have been talking about policies and things like that. But you want to talk about how someone responded to a child. That has nothing to do with anything. But, I think she and when Tim Walz came back and answered her to say, what do you do? He said, wait a minute, I'm working with someone who actually aligns with my policies and beliefs. I said, I've done this and we're going to expand this. And I think those were perfect answers. I think, you oftentimes look at people like Dana, but you look at them and they come in with these ideas of how they're going to poke holes into something, how they're going to get under someone's skin. And she wasn't successful at that. And, and I think that the answers that Kamala gave to those questions that people think about were appropriate answers, because that's where you are. That's where we are. And those were appropriate answers. And I really think that she's great at, and will be, and show it even more in a debate. She's great at holding her ground and saying, my character, my belief, who I am has never changed.
That's right. My thing is, first of all, I was glad that they did do the interview. However, I did not like the pressure of them doing the interview. First of all, I think, and this is my opinion, based on some facts, CNN, mainstream media is becoming more and more less irrelevant. I mean, they're becoming irrelevant, I should say. They're becoming less needed in this cycle of elections, because their viewerships are low. I mean, when you think about, for instance, like a Brian Tyler, he has millions of people that are going to watch whatever he does. When he interviewed the president, there was millions of, he has like 1.5 or 1.8 million people watching him. CNN doesn't get that kind of coverage any longer. there's very few people watching these traditional news media platforms, and they are trying to hold their ground, like trying to like stay relevant, and by crying, oh, she's not giving interviews and making a big deal of it. It's all you heard for weeks. She's not. Well, first of all, the woman just became a candidate a month ago.
Right.
So she's got a lot more things to worry about than being on CNN or MSNBC or whoever wants to have her on. Her main is to get her platform together, her policies together, who is going to be her VP. There was a lot of stuff, and they were able to accomplish that in a month. Remember, we're only now a month and a week into this.
Yeah.
A month and 1 week. So my thing is, and what was disturbing me about Dana, whatever, I can't ever get her name right. Sorry for butchering her name.
It's so hard.
The anchor of CNN. And I kept saying, who cares about fracking? Now, I know Pennsylvania is a fracking state, so I've been told. I don't know how much fracking is done in Pennsylvania. And she was trying to do a got you kind of moment, as into, they know Pennsylvania is a key state to this election.
Oh, yeah.
And so since it is said that fracking is a big thing in Pennsylvania, it was almost like trying to get her to do the I got you. But she kept saying, wait a minute. In 2020, I already made my position. And I have been with my position. I have not changed my position, and I'm not going to change my position. And then she comes again with the question. Well, in 2019, well, she says, I've been doing what I believe in since 2020. What matters? What does it matter about 2019?
She was trying to do she was trying to get the John Kerry, in my opinion, where one of the things that hurt John Kerry when he ran was, I was for it before I was against it. If those of us who are of age that remember,
yes,
that's what annoyed. So I'm like, oh, but that's what really got me with that. But you know what? I again, like what Elise had pointed out with the on day one question, if I was a consultant or whatever advisor, hey, every single question you are asked by the media, before somewhere somehow weave in what the other guy says. Yeah. Because on that fracking question, she started it with, let's talk about energy. So if you missed that, go back and rewatch. Mm-hmm. The question started as, well, let's talk about energy. So fracking, and so the Biden Harris administration has been quiet about this fact right now, but that we are producing more energy, oil, which totally goes against the common goal of Democrats and the left and the liberal side of let's protect our planet. We can do that, but the current administration, this is a fact. This is not my opinion. This is a fact. Mm-hmm. We are currently, as a country, we are producing more oil. We are producing more energy.
More energy.
So she could have clapped back with that, saying what? She could have, and this would have, I feel like this could have ingratiated her more with those who are still undecided, that, hey, listen, here's where I maybe differ with the Biden campaign. Maybe they didn't want to talk about this for whatever reason, but we are producing right now more energy than ever. And the orange one says he wants to drill, baby, drill. Mofo, we already drilling.
Yeah, we are drilling more oil than we've ever done. And
But I
But
think on the
the
issue,
whole thing was it was a got you kind
right,
of question to try
right.
to get her to rile up people in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely. And that's what it was about. So, but a part of it is understanding what we all know. In states where they've relied on the harvesting of natural resources like oil and coal, they have to also be able to know what alternative work they can get. That's where their money is. That's where their jobs are. There's a lot of money in Pennsylvania around fracking, right? So to try to get someone to answer a question and go back to, she knew, you could tell by the way she formulated the question.
Yes.
She knew very well that in 2020 during the debate, Kamala said that. So that's why she went to 2019. So
Yeah.
she knew exactly what she was doing, and Kamala wouldn't let her get away with it and said, this is what I've talked about. This is what I said during the debate in 2020. 2019 has no relevance here. And
Exactly.
what we are doing to talk about sustainable energy. And I think she learned, at the Jazzy pointed out, she's a prosecutor, she's a lawyer. She learned how to deflect that. She learned how to, hey, this is what we're doing. You can't get rid of it. It's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right?
Yes.
You can't throw out everything until you get something. And when people talk about high gas prices, the reason they're not higher is because they release more oil in this country.
That's
The
right.
reason they had to do that, and I think we don't talk enough about the plan that was left by the previous administration, that agreement he signed that didn't expire until 2021 with those OPEC nations to slow down oil production. That was an agreement that former president made, that this administration had to live with. So, and then the fact that they are bringing more jobs into this country, whether it's around sustainable energy, the things with the chips. All of that's something that this administration has done. And I think it is important that as she did, she kept talking about what they've done, which she's gonna constantly have to keep saying, but we've done all of these things. And you trying to talk about something else and trying to throw off things or get people riled up, and it's not working.
Yeah. I mean, and that's when she went down the conversation of the opportunity economy. And they try to do a got you like everything is higher, everything's more expensive than it was. But again, remember, 4 years ago, we were under shutdown. Prices were low because what? It's based on the supply and demand, right? Supply and demand. People were not leaving their houses. People were not shopping. People were not going out buying anything. So guess what? Prices drop when supply is increased and demand decreases, right? So prices go up when demand increases
You have to leave the
and
house.
supply decreases.
Kids going
Laws
back to school, you got to buy more
economics.
groceries. That's supply and demand, right?
Right,
That's how it
supply and
works.
demand.
So, and the one thing is, I always find this question just annoying. Oh, you've been here for 3.5 years, so what? So let's talk about the reality, right? The former president, up until 2020, had been in position how long? And what had he done? All of these things he's talking about now, he had not done. So we can't, everybody keeps saying, no, it was not half of his term. And I saw somebody say that online. Half of his term was not the pandemic. Let's be real clear. Pandemic was officially started in 2020, was at the last year
end of his
term, right?
Yes, right.
The last year of his term. So be clear that up until that point, he had done what? Nothing. He hadn't built a wall. He hadn't done all of these things he's talking about doing now, and all the criticism they have about someone who's done a tremendous amount of things in 3.5 years that no presidential administration has done in over 60 years. Get out of here. But let's talk about that. And when they start the question, be fair about that, which I don't anticipate them being. Why didn't you? The question should be to him. Why didn't you do it the last time?
Yeah,
that's where the question lies, and then a part of their answer has to be to the voters. With some of the things that you're asking, why didn't we accomplish? I'm gonna add, you have to figure out how to do it gently. We needed people to show up. for the midterm so that the president can maintain the control, democratic control of the House, so that you can continue to accomplish more things. That didn't happen because people did not show up. There's some big numbers out of Texas and places like that that are ridiculous for me. And Louisiana, you all didn't show up, but you wanted stuff, and now you want to talk about it. So that at some point it has to be the constituency has to realize, the voters have to realize, because you don't show up for those midterms or every election, things don't work the way you want because you're not giving them the resources. The resources are not just financial, they're human.
Yes.
We need a House and a Senate that's going to help this presidency achieve the things that we think we want them to do. And understand that they're not going to be able to do everything. But if we want them to accomplish some of the things, and we want them to go back and impact Roe v. Wade or voting rights legislation, she's going to have a blue House and Senate, period. If you don't give her that, then you're going to come back and complain, oh, she didn't do. What did you do? Did you show up? Did you make sure people showed up? The ones who don't want to vote, or the ones who are right now saying, I'm holding my vote, or that's my protest, you're not hurting anyone but yourself. And you're also hurting those people that you say you want to support. Your support is not voting. Your support is empowering yourselves and that community by voting for people who are going to actually listen. That's what that's about. But we also, I think that's the part we have to make sure that they're held accountable, that the past administration, if they sit in front of CNN, it's going to be interesting to see if she asks them, well, why didn't you do it when you were there?
Yeah. And what gets me is that obviously the Trump people do not go in front of CNN or MSNBC or any other. They only stick to Fox. Another thing that was really interesting about this leading up to these, just a couple of days before, they were saying because she was having this interview with her VP pick, which, why? Because every president or person that was going to be president had done the same exact thing. So again, why were they making this a big deal for Kamala? Because she said, and you go on to Fox or you go onto the other side, they say, oh, she couldn't do it by herself. She needed a man to be with her, and he's there to help her and support her or deflect and yada, yada, yada. Meanwhile, even Trump and Vance, that one of their interviews, they did it together. So Pence, every president has done an interview with their VP or VP pick.
I posted a photo to my Instagram stories sometime yesterday. I think it's still up, showing, and I basically just said, don't fall for the okie doke. This is not unusual. If her VP selection, I don't know what was my mouse, it would be a joint interview for the past. That's SOP right there. So they're making up stuff. And
well, the whole thing too is, and speaking of the VP pick, they keep going after him about this. The weapon, the arm, having the guns and getting rid of the guns that he had in war. It was semantics. I mean, he could have just said, when I was, these are weapons of war, fought for war. But he says when he was in war, which was, a simple. It was a matter of in and on, in the wording, and his wife did say he probably messed up grammatically. But they keep hopping on this. Meanwhile, the person that has on the opposite side has never served.
Never served.
There's someone that served 24 years, and they're hopping on the person that's given his whole life to service. And the other person has not served anyone.
But that's intentional, right? They're trying to discredit him with veterans, which is not working. The biggest thing that happened recently was the whole debacle at Arlington Cemetery.
Oh, yes.
And the thumbs up, which was not supposed to happen anyway, a political event. And, I don't know if you all heard about the the service person at the female service person at the cemetery, saying that they physically attacked her. Really, they kind of pushed her out of the way. But for something, I don't care if the family invited, they know the rules. When has this man? This is the man, same man now, who, because it rained, would not go and honor people, fallen soldiers, right? Same man that's called those people who were prisoners of war and all those people weak and suckers. This same man. So to ask someone, when we're talking about weapons of war and know that's the only place that should happen, that's what we're talking about. But there are a couple of things, and I think the one thing that we haven't talked about is when she tried to bait her into the conversation around Trump talking about her background, her nationality, right? And she was like, "That's all I had to say." She said, "That's it. Why feed that?"
Yeah.
There's no reason to feed something that you are trying to bait me with, which has absolutely nothing to do with me being a president.
It was an irrelevant question to begin with.
Of course, it's irrelevant.
It was that gotcha and how she did a freaking Bruce Lee of like next.
She said next question, which was an appropriate thing, because I think that's the skill that she has to keep using and honing, is that I'm not going to fall into the trap. Whereas if this other one, the former president, get into an interview like that, I promise you, it's going to be a show.
Here's
something. Be a horrible show, but
here's another thought. I mean, they were trying to get her in and say, "Hey, you know what? They were asking her how did it happen when Joe, called her and the whole stuff." I thought they may have meant that question to be for bad, but it really humanized her.
Yes.
By she's saying, I was with my kids. I'm sorry, my nieces, and we were making,
breakfast,
and she said she was making her bacon and all the other stuff. It really, from what I'm hearing from all the commentators, it really humanized. I thought it made us feel like, hey, we could identify with who she is. I mean, who's not hanging out with your family? It's a Sunday and you're just relaxing. But what I loved most about it is that when at the end of the day, they were trying to get her how Dana was trying to do, but it was a focus on Joe Biden and not herself. I thought that was really interesting. That even though he calls her and says, I made this decision. This is what we're gonna do, and you're gonna be, I guess, how the conversation went. And then they asked her, so what do you feel about that? She said, I didn't really feel anything about myself.
Right.
I'm thinking that I was more concerned about him.
And the real bait in that question, and she asked this twice. Did you ask him to do that?
Right.
That was the real bait of the question.
Yes.
That was the real thing behind the question. The question was not just simply about what was the call like. The real crux of her question was, did you ask him to endorse you?
Yes.
And she said it wasn't about me. It wasn't about me. He said what he was going to do. It wasn't about me. And I think that was
coming for that. They keep coming for that storyline. They did it during the convention. They're doing it afterwards. They're just looking. It's unfortunate that they're looking for something to just drag her down for. And that's the unfortunate part versus, as you all have mentioned, you have her first interview. You kind of focused on the policies and her plans and everything else, but you went down the road of, as you said, Brian, tabloid. It's like, why are we not getting some real questions here?
Right.
You're picking tit for tat over what Tim Walz said about IVF versus IUI and semantics. Right. You got the other guy who lies every time he breathes, and you guys created alternate truths. It's like, seriously? Like it was, yes, it worked in their favor in terms of humanizing her, but I was hoping, which is not a strategy, hoping for something more, and it's CNN. It's like, really?
Yeah, you would hope that CNN. Well, I don't look. Let me tell you, I watched this for you all because I said, look, y'all know I don't watch all these news programs, but I did want to see how they would conduct an interview. And
Mhm.
they proved themselves to be horrible in the debate. They're still proving themselves not to be great with the interviews. But I think one of the things that just needing to remember when it comes to like the issue of Joe Biden, right? The issue is that she's from day one thanked him, right? So
Yes.
to try to bait someone into that, and then not forgetting that Joe Biden has been in this game for 50 years.
50 years.
He
And before we
knows.
go, let me just pause though. For
Uh-huh.
those that want to come on, I'm just gonna put this up in the corner. So I know I'm blocking myself, but if you want to come on, just scan that code, and you know I'm gonna censor who's pops on because it's
Right.
you have to be someone that's part of this community, obviously.
Right.
So someone that we know and that we can have them vetted. I just have to always protect the community. So if you are part of the community and you've been here every week or sharing, you know what I mean. You're a
Right.
regular.
Right.
This barcode is here for you as well. So okay,
Right.
continue on, Elise. I'm sorry.
So being in the game for that long, he also knew that whatever the decision he made had consequences and needed to make sense, right?
See you in the next one.
So a part of that was he knew for the funding, they raised all his money.
Yes.
No one else would be able to use that. It would be
That's
gone.
right.
That's number one. He also knew you had a very short amount of time for whoever it is to run a campaign and be successful at it. He's also old enough to remember 1968 and how crazy that convention was when everyone
right.
was trying to jockey for a position. So he made a strategic decision based on 50 years of political knowledge and trusting and believing that he made a good choice. This was to say, I chose this person and this person has worked well with me for the last 3.5 years. I have faith in her. That's what needed to happen. And I think that's all that he didn't make a decision to spite anyone. He made a decision to make sure, to try to make sure that there was success.
Yes.
And things could be more seamless and less hectic and less confusion and lead to less infighting, because after that, all of them fell in line.
They all fell in line. Well, again, it was the wisdom of the Black women
Absolutely.
that was supporting her since she became vice president. And they said as soon as they got you got your shirt on, listen to Black women. Because they knew immediately that when she was selected, they had to go as if it was a five alarm fire. And they got out and they mobilized within hours, not days, hours. And they knew, and from the people that were in charge of the Black women for Harris, they had already strategies set up for this moment.
Right.
I mean,
but
that's the power of again, I always say community is important, but these women they've been meeting every Sunday
for 4 years.
For 4 years since she became VP. Once she was announced that she was going to be a VP, they started assembling way back. And it goes to show you planning is important.
It is.
Planning is important. And see, she's going to have all kinds of pillars around her and to support her and to sustain her when she becomes president. I'm not saying if, I'm saying when.
Yeah, right.
And it's just fascinating to me that there are so many ways this interview could have gone, but they did not. I thought they could have dived into so many other things about, how what was her philosophy, what was her thinking, because the whole key of I thought the key of the interview was also to really get to know her. I mean, isn't that why you want to be on the interview? Because America still doesn't, a lot of folks say they don't know her, don't know how that could possibly be, but they don't. But we live in a low educated society.
So,
So
Ron, I'm gonna stop you right there on that comment right there.
yeah.
I had this conversation with my daughter the other day. I
Mhm.
will no longer say low educated or undereducated. What we're dealing with is ignorance and avoidance.
Mm.
Not about education level, because and the reason I say that is because some of the people who are supporting the other side are doctors, lawyers, and Indian chiefs.
That's
So
right.
it's not about education level. It's about choosing not to know. It's about straight out ignorance. And I think that's what we have to call a thing a thing.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's
I
not
have to agree.
because I feel like my relatives who only went through the 8th grade education, my aunts and things who in the past now, they were always out there voting. And so it had nothing. And they voted for people for their own in their own best interest. So it's not about education level, because there are people out here with PhDs and MDs out here who are out here supporting the other side for whatever reason. So just understand, it's about ignorance, avoidance, and the willingness not to know.
Yes.
I love you, Elise. That's you.
Well,
You
well,
nailed it. Hey, Omar. Welcome, Omar, to the
what's
panel.
up, everybody? I've been watching you
Hey.
guys, obviously listening to you, and thank you, Elise, for your knowledge. And I think you're the leader. You're our designated political analyst leader because you give it to us straight. Um, I guess I want to come through as the common person, like the dude that's in the middle of the road, because Ron knows me. I'm in the middle, and I voted Republican and I voted Democrat as an independent, and I'm thankful that I'm an independent uh, because sometimes I get insane by both parties. I mean, and as I go about my day, I deal with a ton of I guess Texas is a very interesting state.
Say the least.
It's not a red state per se as we might think it's a red state.
Exactly.
We're really excuse me, we're a purple state. If you're in if you're in the metropolitan area like Dallas and Houston and so on, those are blue states, and then the rest of the country, I mean, the rest of the Texas, which is a ton of counties, is just little farmhouses and hillbillies and stuff. So, but those
Be nice to
hillbillies,
the hillbillies.
those hillbillies have to come. They come to town to do work, So a lot of these people live in rural Texas, and they come to the city to work, to do their trade and whatnot. And so, what's fascinating to me is the immigrants, the people who are citizens, became citizens, and the position they take because of where they're from, and with whether they're Asian or Latino, but not from here, they're pro-Trump. They are pro-Trump, and I don't know what that. I don't know. When I have these conversations and I'm trying to tell them that he's not for you, they're the myopic, the optics of it is that they look at him as a strong arm leader. Like, he's strong. He says what he says, and we want a leader that is I guess egomaniac maniac. I mean, they just want loud. They want someone that feels almost dictatorship.
Yeah, but
So
Omar, what fascinates me with that, and because I've heard that a lot of times, that people, especially our Latino brothers and sisters, they love that machismo, arrogant, in your face, loud, boisterous, and most of our immigrant population that comes from Latin America did everything to escape that from their dictators in some of those countries. And so I'm always wondering, I mean, do you have any insight of why because you're Spanish, you're
Well,
Latino, and why? What do you think is? I mean, it's quite fascinating to me that there is this total connection to that, and Trump does nothing but insult them, but they still love him.
it's culture.
It's culture.
It's culture, because in a, and I obviously speaking from my perspective, in a Latin household, my dad, was the Puerto Rican George Jefferson, and I mean, literally, he looked like him, he walked like him, he talked like him. He was 5'6" and full of machismo, full of command presence, full of this is my house, and stuff like that. Um, and so a lot of the households, my relatives and cousins and their dads and my uncles and so on, it was the highway, my way or the highway kind of mentality, and so it's culture, it's generations of that, and so it's really one of those fine lines as we're looking at Kamala Harris taking that lead role. They're not used to seeing a woman,
In control.
being the leader, and so that's one of those communication gaps that the that she's going to have to present herself to not even just not the Latin culture, but also the Asian culture. The Asian culture, even though it's a little bit more quieter, I believe, but the men really dictate that house. They really have a stronghold that household. I hope I'm not talking out of step, but through my interaction with a lot of Asians, and we have a large Asian community where I live, the husbands, man, they're a trip. you know?
I mean, and you can. I definitely, for me, I happen to love Japanese culture, and yeah, I mean, a lot of these stances are from the traditions and cultures of the individual. Well, first of all, we have a new panelist on, and that is Jazzy.
Hi.
Jazzy, what's
Jazzy.
going on? So,
Hey, Jazzy.
what do you? What do you want to contribute? Contribute to this conversation, my dear.
Well, just to back off of the point that was just being made, I do think that people have to remember when people are coming from these different countries, what they're actually leaving. They're a lot more conservative than people realize.
Yes.
um, and that's really what they slightly want is someone like a Trump, but not to completely control them without realizing that's what Trump wants to do is completely control them. So I think a lot of times when we look at that, we're always like, why are they like that? Why are they doing that? Well, their country went in that direction partly because there was a lot of people that were in agreement with what they were doing in the first place. They just didn't want the total rule and control of one person over them. So I think that's something that we have to understand. But also, I definitely think, first of all, I always love how you all talk about what is going on and the education that you provide. Because I think a lot of times people, to Elise's point, it's not that they can't know, it's not that they don't understand how to figure out, it's just that they're like disconnected and they don't really care, because they don't understand that it's going to affect them. So my whole thing is, especially being,
Time of year, blood donation.
hey,
That was, that
especially
was
being
Omar's car. I had to put him on mute.
but I think sometimes, like, even listening to some of my friend groups, to Elise's point, it's like you have people of all educational backgrounds that genuinely don't understand how this country is run. And I
Yes.
think right now, what I'm seeing is Kamala is put in a position where she is trying to make a point to say, "Hey, I am for you, and I'm normal, and I'm going to be right there with you." But also, you have to understand there's things that she cannot say. And I think I
True.
hear so much that people are like, why didn't you do this? Why can't she say this? We have to understand she works for the current administration. She cannot come out and say, I completely disagree with everything that this man is doing. That would be counterproductive, not only to herself, but to the current administration. And I think that people have to understand, especially when it comes to certain conflicts that we're going through, he has to walk this very fine line. So, yeah, sorry.
Can
That's
I add?
Before you
That was
go,
very
that was definitely something that let me get that. Okay, good. So now, so people do not understand. I mentioned this before. I think last Friday we had this conversation. Is that there's only one president at a time.
right.
One president at a time. So, and on that is you have this problem with what's going on now in the Middle East. Is that you have Trump working behind the scenes in trying to prolong the war because he thinks it's going to be in his benefit
Right.
if there's conflict in the Middle East.
Yes.
And so which is, I don't understand why Trump is allowed to get away with it, because how does Netanyahu go from the Senate meeting, gets on a plane and flies down to,
That's so
to
crazy.
Trump, and then sit around with a table with him acting like he's president?
That is so crazy.
What's the difference between this and this?
Can we say that plus privilege? Okay.
There's only one president at a time. And that is the rule that has been followed for 2 centuries. One president at a time. If you're the VP in Kamala's case, and she is running for office, and even when she wins in November, she still can't pass legislation. She can't voice about what she wants to do. She can't say, this is going to be my policy on such and such on certain items, because Biden is still the president. He has not retired. He's just not running for president. He is still the president.
That's just how such an egomaniac, and he's a crazy man. He's a crazy man, because even that, and then also the scene that he created at the Arlington Cemetery, which was so disrespectful, to take that opportunity to bring cameras into what they call sacred ground.
It is.
Right. For politics.
Who you have men and women buried there who fought for this country. Didn't matter what the administration was. Didn't matter who was the president. They gave their lives.
That's right.
They gave their lives. There were people. I remember when Nixon and the Vietnam War. I remember that. And obviously one of the most unpopular wars this country ever had. With protests all over the country and so on, and it's a war we never won.
Absolutely, we haven't won a war. Been at a winning war since World War II.
Yes, we have not won a war since World War II.
So, but people serve their country, whether they were drafted and all that. Why we as a society celebrate individuals like Trump's, they celebrate him, and they it's just I think, again, I've heard this several times. This election is this election is about the soul of this country.
Absolutely.
It is about, I'm literally want to go into tears. Yes. Seriously, because we have lost our soul. We have lost our way of helping each other, being our neighbor, being there for our neighbors. I remember a time where we would huddle together. New York was great about block parties, and we would be in and out, and just no matter who, we didn't know, we didn't care what you were, you know. You on our block, we're gonna celebrate, we're gonna party together and all that. Those days are gone, you
Well,
know.
it's
Black
Omar.
humanity.
But it's interesting when you talk about. I mean, I think this is why Kamala is getting traction, is that she is a beacon of some sort of what we had, even though we're going forward. The messages keep going forward, keep going forward. But she is also, I do believe that there is a large number of people in this country that are tired of this chapter that Trump issued in. We have been going through this crazy Trump chapter for 12 years.
Longer.
And if not longer, but I mean,
Yeah,
his 2 years of being a president, and then him not leaving office properly, and then being a side clown show on the sidelines, while Biden's trying to initiate. Think about it. I mean, there would be a border bill law. That bill would have became a law. Everything that Biden has tried to do once the House was lost to the Republicans has been hindered because of this clown. And it is amazing how much legislation has been stopped because Trump has said don't do it.
Yeah. People don't understand committees.
I wanted to
I know Gwendolyn had her hand up.
Oh, wait, Gwendolyn has.
Yes, she had her hand up.
My bad.
I'm always the student, always. I'm going to make this really quick, and I'll let Brian go. But I'm thinking about what Omar just said about how this is, this is about the soul of America. However, we kind of forget how America came about. Like, it doesn't have this pretty rosy history.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We are all on stolen land. And as they keep saying, it is an experiment. So I don't see it so much as a fight for the soul of. There are people who want to make that experiment work. And that requires us living like all the pieces of a really good gumbo, like a really good gumbo. Not that other stuff. I'm talking like Louisiana, like real deal gumbo, right?
All that.
The real stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Why you gotta go with the food?
But that means that there are people who have been holding on to that story of power over. And we know that everything that other guy is doing is white privilege walking. That's all that is white supremacy. And there are folks who believe in that, and they are doing everything possible to hold on to it. So it really comes down to, what do you really stand for? Do you want that life where somebody is always power over, where the poor person thinks, well, I can't get rich because you are also poor, which is like the biggest scam ever, right? Yeah. Whereas the other guy gets $127 million and everything else, right? So it's more of that. Have we ever lost what was, as you say, the block parties or going next door and borrowing literally brown sugar and eggs? We haven't lost it per se. We took on the idea of, I have to be an individual and stand out and be this all-encompassing something. And that's what he has pretended to be and got away with. It doesn't have to be that way, though. We know that we can live a life with someone like VP Harris, who says, you know what, we're all in this together. We're all in the same boat. Let's just work together. And we are tired of the chaos. And we want to, as hard as it's possible, we want to get away from living the life of very overt racism and misogyny and all the phobias. Like, we don't want to deal with that because we are here at this point. We're not going away. This skin ain't changing, except in the summer when I get a little bronze, but it's staying. Like, this is it. And we are fighting for that. That experiment is what we're really fighting for.
Jazz, I saw your hand up.
Did Brian want to go first?
Ladies first.
I just want to say to your point, I think part of what this is and part of what we have always seen is that people want power. We have told people that it is not okay to be a bus driver. It is not okay to be a teacher. It is not okay to be, what we call low-level jobs, right? We have told people this is not what they want to be, but then you're also saying, you have to be a billionaire. All of us are not going to be billionaires. All of us are not going to be millionaires. We have to get back to the reality that we need everybody at every level to work together. And the thing about this is, just like when Kamala the other day, there's a plan, right, for taxes, unrealized capital gains tax. And you have people that live in apartment buildings that don't even understand what that is and would never, ever see that tax.
Yeah.
The reality is we have pumped in people's heads that it is not okay to be a normal working citizen in this country. And because we have done that, we have allowed people to say and look at somebody like 45 and say, okay, I can aspire to be that. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to aspire to be that, but not everybody is going to be that. And we have to be okay with that. And we have to be okay with telling people that that's what they need. And that they don't need to have $100 million to have a good life in this country. So for me, when I look at Kamala, I look at it from a perspective of, okay, I have the opportunity to sustain my lifestyle, to have a family, to get a house, to pay my bills. I don't look at somebody like 45 and say, you know what, they're actually fighting for me. But what's happening is you have people that are so idealistic, to be honest, that they're like, okay, I'm going to be able to get $100 million. You don't have a job that pays you more than $15 an hour. How do you think that is going to work? That man is not working for you. He's doing every single thing in his power, and the people that are in Congress are doing everything in their power to eliminate that help. I saw an interview the other day, don't remember the guy's name. I think he was a Republican out of Louisiana. They straight up asked him, what does it mean to you? Why do you think women get abortions? What is one of the reasons why you think women get abortion? Right? And he cannot answer the questions. He doesn't understand the financial disconnect that's going on in this country with some of these women. That is what is happening. And we have to also understand when we're on these eastern coastlines or western coastlines, and we are not seeing the rural areas, those people and a person like me that lives in the DC metropolitan area have very, very, very different needs. Very different needs. I can go down to the street to the post office. Where my mother lives, the post office closed at 10:30 in the morning. There are 12 people in her town now.
How many?
112.
112 people are in her town.
So what she needs,
wow,
and what somebody like me needs, or somebody that lives in New York, or somebody that lives in a major city in Texas, is very, very different. And I think the thing is, we have to be able to say, I see all of you, I hear all of you, but at the same time, I want you to know that I'm working for the collective and not just for me. So that's what we have to get people to understand.
Well,
by voting for people in Congress, because
Jazzy,
there's that.
I mean, you hit on the nose, and I love that you brought up the fact that not everyone wants to live in a big mansion. Not everyone wants to have a house. Not everyone wants to make $1 million. Not everyone wants. Some people are just happy just punching in, doing their thing, spending time with their family. They don't need major wealth. They just want to live, and they just want to do the thing that everyone. And I always say this when I travel the globe, when I've been to all these different other countries, and I don't care how poor that country is, human beings have the same desire for the most part. In the basics of who they are. One, to be loved and cared for. Two, to have someone to care for and love. Three, to have shelter. Four, and have food to eat. And the rest of the stuff is a bonus.
Yeah.
When you look at most countries, we eat 3 times a day, 4 times a day, 5 times a day, some of us 6 times a day.
Too many times.
And you go to other countries, they eat once a day. or once every other day. That's how most people in the world eat. One meal a day, one meal every other day. And so we bought into this as an American society that we have so much, and then we everything is bling bling on the video. I remember DL Hughley was saying on an interview yesterday. He said everyone bought into all of this bling bling, and he says everyone on as a rapper is not living that life. You go on those videos, they're not living that life. He says when they come in, they borrow that diamond necklace, they borrow those rings and chains. He says, and after the video is over,
They give it back.
they give all that stuff back. That's only for the video. No one's living that life. And so we live in America under this false pretense of everyone has to be wealthy. Everyone has to be. And then what's amazing in this whole election cycle is that there are people that are dirt poor, and not in a mean way.
Right.
They have no money, they have no teeth, they have no health care, they have nothing, and they still they run after this guy who's an imitator rich man, because we all know he ain't rich. I mean, he thinks he's rich. That's a persona. And he is skilled in being cunning and being, elusive and being deceptive and deceitful, and the list, all of those things. He is a skilled person in that way. And it's always amazing to me that how people that have nothing will chase after people that have what they think is something. And it's just something that Jazzy, when you brought that up, I mean, we need to return to respecting people for who they are, where they are, where they're at.
Go
ahead, Bree.
Like Jazzy and Omar, like two things with Jazzy, what you said, I'll hit upon that first, in the sense of like this notion of like my interpretation, this notion of your self-worth is determined by your net worth. And I don't know how long it will take for us as a country to adjust that like, oh my God, I don't have $100 million, or I don't have $1,000. It's not about the money. And usually when we hear people say that, those are the rich mofos that say, I am not wealthy financially. I'm not rich financially. But in my walk in life, it got to a point where it's not about the money. Truly, it's when I tell younger people or students I'm teaching or whatever, hey, look, that adage of, do what you love and the money will follow. I've adjusted that. Say, follow your passion, follow your purpose, follow your peace, and the wealth will follow. Wealth is not financial, personal wealth, spiritual wealth. That this inner tranquility. Not everybody can be a general. Not everybody wants to be a general. You need some soldiers in there in this collective society. And I look at Tim Walz as a prime example. One of the quote big shockers after he was announced, and they have to do full financial disclosure. Most of the people that run for these high offices have land,
stock holdings.
Right.
Tim Walz and they don't own a home because they sold their home when he became governor. And he is truly living that. See how happy he is. So to that point that Jazzy's hitting upon, I just feel like we're a capitalist society. But how do we go from making money the focus to like, hey, let's get back to focusing on a person's character? and that goes to me, that's a whole nother segment, because you could go into social media, you can go into like
Right.
the past couple of decades of us becoming an insta-meal society. I want the stuff now. No, look at where Tim Walz is at. He's about to be the vice president, but where he started over time, consistently. And then lastly, to Omar, and what you guys were saying with 12 years, and I think I brought this up after one of the nights at the DNC when I was looking at Xavier, who's 12. He started his first day of 7th grade yesterday. And we here's where I will put us all. I will speak for all of us, and if I'm off, please somebody let me know. But here is where I think I've said this before. Here's where I feel like all of us have gone through and are continuing to go through a lived trauma. This orange person came on the scene like in this capacity in 2010. 14 years. I want each and every one of us to think, where were you? What were you doing in the year 2010? For 14 years, orange has traumatized all of us, and especially those of color, starting with birtherism. Barack Hussein Obama, there's something weird about his name or whatever. And then
16 years.
Say what?
16 years, 2008.
So that's right. Yeah. So I've been padding it to 14, but think about that. 16. In 16 years time, from when President Obama got elected to 2010, when the birtherism started getting louder and Orange was going on these talk shows or whatever, these interviews saying, I've got people in Hawaii and you won't believe what they're finding. They didn't find jack crap. And then the nail in the coffin was when Obama, lit his ass up at the White House Correspondents' Dinner that Saturday night. And then talk about cool as a cucumber. Little did we know at the same time, that's when the operation to get Osama bin Laden was going on. And the next day, Obama came out and basically we got him. So that's the type of leader that we need in the White House. That's what I see in future Madam President Kamala Harris. But think about that. For 16 years, I'm going to be concise, 16 years, as Elise reminded me, we all have lived through a trauma, and it's gotten to the point where I feel like we're like, oh, it's like boxing, which I used to do, and you get hit, that first one hurts. After a while, I'm just numb, but you're still getting hit. So that's where we have to. Here's our opportunity to turn the page. I feel like I'm on the campaign now, but yeah.
Well, you know what, Brian? I'm going to give you the last. That was the last word.
So before you go, Ron, I want people to pay close attention to what's happening.
Yes, my dear.
As a result of the Arlington Cemetery debacle, the veterans, there are a lot of upset veterans, a lot of them who are coming out and being vocal. The raid on the Latino community down in Texas is having an impact that shows that they're afraid. 39% of Texas's population is Hispanic, is Latino.
39%.
47% white. They're not the majority of people in the state of Texas, and they know it. People don't realize that because, we live in our own little places. Their fear showed that they're worried about this organization who, for the first time, endorsed a candidate and has a voice in the community and is getting people registered to vote. And looking at the numbers of, I think the number of young Black female voters went up to 175%. So you have to look at those things that are really frightening them right now and pay attention to that, because I think they see the shift. And so that also has to do with how people question Kamala too. They see that shift and they trying to diffuse those things. But that really, those two incidents recently really have upset and taken pulled the Wiz's curtain down for some communities.
Yeah. Well, guys, this was a great conversation, a great discussion. Thank you, guys. Jazz, where can people find you? Jazz, first of all, we acknowledge your presence on the platform. Thank you for coming on.
Well,
It
thank
takes
you for
takes
having
guts.
You can find me at Jazzy_sings the blues on Instagram. That's all I really use. So there's that. So,
Awesome. Elise, where can people find you?
SALIEZE _ on Instagram.
Omar, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me mainly on Facebook. That's where I do most of my crying. At Omar Ramos, and on Instagram, photos by Omar. But also, Ron, don't forget, I'm coming to town. We got.
I'm gonna announce it right now.
Announcement out, and
Now-
Jazzy, I'll be in DC on the 4th for the Hispanic Heritage Month event.
Okay.
So
So you can connect with Elise and Jazzy in DC.
there we
yes.
go. So
Yeah,
we want to hang out with our Latinos.
Jazzy, now we know our next date.
And so, Brian, where can people find you?
Brian Young Creative on Instagram. BRYAN.
There you go. And Gwendolyn, where can people find you?
We are Black Power Bunny on Instagram and GR Houston Jack on YouTube.
Awesome. And guess what, guys? Omar is coming to New York. He'll be here next week. And so I am going to Sunday, September 8th. It's a Sunday. We will be gathering together. Location not confirmed yet, but we will get together for a brunch at around 12-ish. Is that lunch or brunch? I was going to say 11 o'clock, right? 11 o'clock.
Brunch
And
is
we'll
from
get together.
11 to 3.
Yeah, 11 to 3. Somewhere in there, somewhere in the 11 to 3 hour, we'll be meeting on next Sunday the 8th. Is that next Sunday? Oh my God.
Yeah.
A week from Sunday, yeah.
Yep. Next, so following Sunday.
Start Sunday.
Yes, we will be hanging out and getting together for breakfast. It will either be at one of my restaurant, a place that has like a couple of things that I like, or we'll get together maybe in Harlem. So I think Harlem will be the spot. So get some good old fashioned food. I'm gonna make some reservations, and we're gonna talk about how many people. But so if you are interested in meeting with us, I'm gonna create a little flyer, and you'll be able to go to our Touch Base Daily page. Because we do have a Touch Base Daily page on Instagram. You can just click on there and let us know what you want. But let us know if you're coming, so that way I can have the numbers, because you cannot reserve space until you give people an accurate number. So please slide into my DMs and let me know if you're going to be in New York or you're coming to New York. And Omar will be here, and so it's going to be a lot of fun to connect and see a lot of you guys in person for the first time. We did that in November for we had our seafood day on the west side, but we're going to do this is another Touch Base Daily get together. I'm excited about it. So we're going to do that next. I know it's short, but we'll do it next Sunday, and let's have some fun with it, and bring out your cameras as well. So we're going to have a good time. Okay. And I think that's it. Guys, also remember to what should you be doing when you're on this platform? You need, let me just get it up. Let me get it up. Like, subscribe, share. And I am on YouTube. And again, for all the folks that watch from Africa, because there are people from Africa that watch this platform, I am now on an Africa. I am teaching a teaching segment on an African television, which is it's called iSabi TV. So I am now, you will be able to see all of my lessons for the African continent. So pass it on for those that are in Africa. Pass that information on to all of your African friends all over the continent that want to learn a little photography online. And so iSabi TV is an app. And if you're an American and you want to just see what's going on in African society on the continent, because there's people from Nigeria, there's people from South Africa, there's people from Ghana, they're from Ethiopia, they're from everywhere. You can log on to iSabi TV, and you can check it out. Let me just do it real quick. I'm just going to have to share it. I got to just share it so you can see what it is. So you'll know what it is when you go there. And here we go. Let me share that with you. And that's what it looks like. And it's called ISAB TV. And I already have 2 lessons on here. So in the video section, there's if you want to know what your sisters and brothers are doing in Africa, this is a good place to find out. There's lots of footage and TV and movies and all kinds of stuff from the continent. And it's all here at ISAB TV. So check it out. And then you got little old me giving my lessons. So in the midst of all of that, so I'm honored that they asked me to do my teaching lessons from photography on their platform. So check it out. Check it out. ISAB TV. And if you go there, make sure you like me and hit me up, because that's where I am on this page. And you see my little profile. There I am with my little 2 videos, how to do smart editing and how to use the camera you have. So right now I only got 1 follower. I just started it 2 days ago. So to put this stuff on the platform. So if you want to follow, come on over and follow me on ISAB TV, especially if you have friends in Africa and they want to be in tune with that. So anyway, just wanted to give that information to you all. And again, thank you for joining me. Thank you, Jazzy Jazz. Jazzy's in the building. Thank you, Elise. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Gwendolyn. And guys, have a wonderful weekend. I may pop on somewhere, somehow, someplace. But anyway, until Monday, I'll see you guys. Love you all. Take care. And we are out of here.